like laser eyes, like pew pew.
That's a hot term in the sports debate world.
Hello and welcome to Watch Out for This. I'm gonna do it again. My name is Maddie Melcher, and I'll be your host. Today we are covering part 1 and part 2 of the Tiger Woods docu-series that aired on HBO Max January 10th and 17th. Joining me on the other line is Bill.
What's going on, guys? It's Wild Bill here. I am ready to talk sports. I am already riding a high. I am on ecstasy right now. Just finished watching the NFC Championship. The Green Bay Packers are dead, and I am alive. Let's go. Let's do this.
Go. Let's do this. Okay, well, thank you, Bill. We're just gonna dive straight into it.
Let's do it.
So, for those of you who do not know, according to HBO, Tiger is a two-part documentary offering a revealing look at the rise, fall, and epic comeback of global icon Tiger Woods. The series paints an intimate picture of the prodigy whose dedication and obsession with the game of golf not only took his fame and success to new heights, but also down a dark, spiraling road that eventually led to a legendary sports comeback. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. And it sort of culminates in his victory at the 2019 Masters. So, general thoughts, Bill. So, what did you think about it overall? And what knowledge do you have of Tiger Woods that may have affected how you watched it?
Yeah, so just touching on like how much I knew about Tiger Woods, I have been like, super into sports since I was a kid, and he was one of the athletes that would just like jump out at me like ever since I was little. Like going into a Nike store, you would just see Tiger Woods this, Tiger Woods on that, like advertisements. So I knew of him. I definitely didn't know very much about golf, but I always closely associated him with that. One of my like first memories is going into like an arcade, and they would have like the stand-up game of like the PGA Tour Tiger Woods game with like the rolling ball. I'm not sure if you've like seen those.
Oh no, I don't know, but that's so cute.
Yeah, I would like remember seeing him on that. So that would be like the full extent, really, other than like seeing Sports Center and seeing like all the reviews of the tournaments, which I never really invested much in. But the one thing I noticed is he would always win everything. So that was kind of like my knowledge going into it. As far as the documentary, big fan. Definitely a must watch for sports documentaries. And I definitely watched my fair share of them. This was very engaging because like I remember watching all of the events go down as they were happening. I just like 2009, I was like, what, 13, 14? So I didn't really like.
Yeah, we were like in middle school.
Yeah, like I didn't understand like how dark it really was, or like that there were really all these affairs going on. So seeing this like piece it all together, it's like now in my grown up, like 25-year-old mind, I'm like, wow, this is pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I have a somewhat similar experience. Like we were not really adults yet when all of the Tiger Woods scandals, sort of came out, and it didn't really make sense to me, or I didn't really care just because I didn't know. And I was like 12, 13,
Mhm.
and I knew nothing about golf, and I still don't. But I was super interested in the documentary, and I think that that's a really strong point, is that you don't have to know about golf to enjoy this film
Mhm.
or a series, because I guess there's two parts. But good point. It's nice to like have two perspectives. Like you grew up like knowing Tiger Woods, and I don't really, and I never have looked up to him in the same way. And so I'm
Yeah.
sure that we've experienced this differently. So that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and there's like two golfers that I knew, literally. And like, especially like growing up, like, I guess I could say like lower middle class and Hispanic, like golf isn't really a thing. So like the fact that I knew him as like the golf guy, it's like kind of just like speaks to how he transcends those like cultural boundaries as being like that guy for that sport.
um, what did you feel about how the movie was structured? Not only just like part 1 and part 2, but his, you know, rise and fall and rise and fall again. Did you agree with
in that
how
way.
they
Yeah,
structured
definitely.
the
Like the
film?
chronological way, like biologically, just like obviously establishing like his upbringing. It made a lot of sense. I wouldn't have wanted to see it like depicted any other way, like kind of like going out of order or like going through like a biopic type of like structure to it. Cause like those biopics just really like overdo the dramatic side of things. And like what I found is that the things that were going on in his life were dramatic enough just by like stating the
Yeah,
facts. So I
yeah.
felt like some of them were already dirty and like dark enough to where like anything more than that would have just been like too much, you know? So like I appreciated the way that they structured this
Yeah, do you
documentary.
think it could have been better as like a one feature film instead of a part one and part two, or do you feel like they needed to dive deep enough to make it like a, you know, 1.5 hours times two?
I definitely think there was like enough content. They probably could have extended it out to a third, honestly.
Yeah,
But
it's just such
yeah,
a unique structure.
hmm so I think it was good. I think the 2 part, hour and a half long type deal was pretty good for it. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that I, I don't know. Basically, I because I've only absorbed um this story, this Tiger Woods story in a part 1 and part 2, I see it as as that. And so I think that they could have made it a movie or like a 2 hour movie and it might have been just as effective, but there was so much that went into like the entire story of who Tiger Woods was and became that I think it does him justice to give a part 1 and part 2,
Hmm
because telling the whole story matters, and if you're given the opportunity from HBO Max to, you know, tell more of the story, of course, as like, you know, a filmmaker, you're going to jump on that and you're going to want to dive as deep as possible. So obviously they, you know, they got that opportunity, and so that was good for them.
hmm
Okay, moving on. So, do you think the documentary is the same without Tiger interviewed throughout the entire film?
Honestly, I really liked that he wasn't like super present in it. In a way, it kind of like put him up on this pedestal that he was already on, but it kind of like, it was more of an examination of him rather than a dissection, if that makes any sort of sense. So like, I think it was great the like how close some of the interview subjects were to him throughout this entire thing. They got like his former caddy, they got his high school girlfriend, they got the infamous mistress that caused the original like 2009 scandal, which is a huge
Oh
selling point for a lot of people that wanted to watch it.
yeah.
So I think it was actually really, really cool how they waited until the very end to show like actual footage of him, being interviewed for this actual documentary. So I thought it was a good choice to, kind of not have him be an active role throughout the entire film.
I wonder if they had that like I wonder if they approached Tiger Woods and asked him to be a part of it or in to be more prevalent in the film and talk more about it, and I wonder if he just said no.
Hmm
And so that's just like that's what happens in filmmaking, like like um it it wasn't clear to me whether this was intentional or not, but regardless, the documentary was successful, I think. So, would it have been better? I don't know, but it's good now,
Yeah.
which is not a strong argument, but I agree. I think that without having him sort of debunk or argue anything that was said about him,
hmm
it makes the documentary a little bit more fluid. Like you said, it observes him how he was observed, and from everyone around him. And so maybe having him as more or as a subject, like as a talking head, might have taken away from the film. But we really wouldn't have known. So I just
Yes.
thought that was interesting that it wasn't until the end, yeah, when they showed him. So
I'm not sure if you've seen the Fire Festival documentary on Hulu. They brought the like actual guy, Billy McFarland. His name's Billy McFarland, right?
I just watched it
The
actually.
one on Hulu or the one on Netflix? There's two of them. The one on Hulu is
There's
like the weird
two.
one. Yeah, there's two of them. So
Oh my
the
god. I
Netflix
think I
one,
watched the one on Hulu.
yeah, so they didn't get an interview on Netflix, but on Hulu they actually brought him in and he played kind of like a major role in like molding the narrative, and it was kind of weird. I felt like it kind of just took away from like what it really was because he tried to really absolve himself of everything, and
Yeah.
like yeah, I didn't like it. So I'm glad that they didn't do that to this.
Here. Yeah. Yeah. Because especially since we heard a lot of feedback from Tiger about what he was going through in the footage of
Hmm.
when he was going through that, like at the Masters, like 2008, 2009, like at all of these interviews and stuff and footage that we had already had or they had access to. So yeah, I think that that was a good call. But now I want to watch the other version. I don't know which version of the Fire Festival documentary I saw, but Billy was not talking in it, so I haven't seen that
Hmm.
one.
It's worth a watch.
Yeah, I had no idea that even happened. Total side note, not related to what we're talking about, but like, holy cow, crazy. Ugh.
Oh, I had a friend that called it out from the
Um,
very beginning. It was fun to watch.
I I don't even like remember it happening. I wasn't super into music festivals like when I was. I think it was we were in high school. I don't know. No, college.
Hmm.
Oh my god, duh. Next up, what did you learn from Tiger Woods that surprised you or you didn't know before? I know that you have sort of a you looked up to Tiger Woods as a kid, but is there something that you learned or something that stood out to you that you didn't know before?
Kind of just like, the obvious like double lives and to the like full degree that he was living them out in like his crazy times in Vegas. But I mean, I was young and innocent. I wouldn't have, expected my heroes to be like, to have that side to them. So that was like kind of a shock to learn. And also I was really too young to remember his very early days when he was like kind of noted as breaking like a racial barrier into the game of golf. So I like kind of did a little bit of research because I know they touched on it a little bit about how the Masters was kind of known for
Yeah.
discrimination, and it was crazy because the first time that a black player was on the in the tournament was 1975, which is decades like after most professional sports integrated black athletes
So they
into
were
it.
behind the curve. I didn't
That's,
know that.
they were way
Wow.
behind the curve. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe I read this in an article. One of the founders of like the Masters, like one of the people that like started the tournament and like founded the like actual grounds and association and everything. He said that as long as he lived, the only black people on the premises would be the waiters and like the caddies, which
Yeah,
is pretty
that's
fucked up.
that is pretty fucked up. Which made
And just the name itself, like the
yeah.
Masters, kind of fucked up.
Wow, okay. I did not even like think about all of that. I didn't do any of that research, so that's interesting. Anything else?
There was a golfer named Charlie Sifford back in the '60s. He he like had all the qualifications to get into the Masters tournament, and they just kept moving the goalposts to like make sure he wouldn't be able to play at
Are you
Augusta,
serious?
which is like,
That's weird.
yeah, no, it's crazy how much, yeah, it's pretty fucked up. They literally had what was called the Caucasian Clause from 1934 to 1961, which like stopped anybody that wasn't white from becoming a member at the club. So the fact that Tiger like kind of broke that was pretty crazy considering he like came onto the scene in like 96, 97.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like we were alive.
Barely, but we were alive. we
We were there.
yeah. So one huge theme that I mean I didn't know about was his father, and that's sort of how they set up the part one of the documentary.
Hmm.
Was and they used his father's voiceover throughout the film, which I found really interesting. But because it had such a huge impact on um, just the theme of the entire story of Tiger Woods is that his father sort of put him on this, like you said before, a pedestal of humanity. Like he was supposed to bring together all these, I forget who said it, but these the tribes of different people, and he was just this person to do that. And so it was just like a lot of pressure on him, and that's kind of how we began. Like, when is this pressure going to be too much to him? So, pedaling back, what did you think about the relationship between him and Earl, his father, and how did you think it impacted his rise and fall?
It was obviously a very close relationship, like typical father son, like dad's following him around, like teaching him, like especially with Earl and golf. He there was a video of him talking and saying like if he would have chosen bowling, like we would have been at the
Yeah.
bowling alley with him, following along those lines. And then a family friend came on and kind of contradicted and said like, nah, Earl wanted him to be a golfer, like no matter what.
Yeah.
So in a way that kind of like makes me realize like, of course Tiger loves golf. Like he wouldn't be Tiger Woods if he didn't love golf. But like the Tiger Woods we know, but to what degree was that like career forced on him and that sort of lifestyle?
So I totally agree. I think that we see this in a lot of young athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, their parents or someone close to them acts as their coach and mentor for the beginning stages, if not the entire career that this
Mm-hmm.
athlete has. Um, and them being so close to them outside of the sport and inside the sport it causes a lot more pressure. It's just it. I know for like from personal experience, like I come from a really competitive family, and like my mom and my dad have always like done the sports that me and my sisters have like competed in, and
Mm-hmm.
it was difficult because the way that we like would receive sort of love and create relationships with other people was bounded in the fact that like our parents were sort of our coaches too, and so it's hard because like he and I think that this might have a lot to do with how he sort of acted out, was because the way that he didn't understand how to love normally.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that that was like super interesting. And how he created relationships with other people was not how he could create a relationship with golf because golf was so easy. He had always done it. And like golf was his father to him. His father was golf. And so
Yes.
I feel like when he lost his father, he felt like he didn't really have golf. And that's why he had to reach out to other things. And it's just really interesting. So obviously, these are my opinions. I'm not trying to like, this is obviously what happened. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that the extra pressure from his father, um, it was a lot, but nothing that he couldn't handle because he was sort of trained like to deal with it.
Yes.
Like at those, do you remember like the interview when he was like 16 or 17, and it was like they interviewed his father and him, and how his father would like yell at him while he was putting
Yeah.
or chipping. Is that what you call it? I don't even know. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know. And he just got used to it after a while, and he was like, "It just stopped bothering me." And I think that his relationship with his father might have been unhealthy. Like he was so close to him in a way that was not like any other normal father would have with his son.
Of course. There was that, the way that he impacted his like golf. And then I feel like it's also really important to bring up how, like we were talking about, the way that he wasn't sure how to love properly. Like they talked about how Earl would bring his RV out with Tiger and a family friend. I can't remember his name. He's in it pretty constantly. But Earl would, give those lessons to all those girls and then invite them in for a quote unquote drink. And Tiger would just be out like practicing. Like that's the type of like trauma that gets ingrained in you. And I feel like that had like a huge impact on why he like down the road would do what he did in spite of him being, married and everything.
Oh yeah, he didn't have a great
Great role
role model
model.
for
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And I also think like one of the like under the radar more significant things was his high school girlfriend Dina and how they were kind of forced to
Yeah,
break up. That was like
that was
so
so
sad.
weird. That was
'Cause,
so sad.
yeah, they like really really liked each other, and the way she like described the way that they would hang out, like he would experience new things in high school, like going bowling or like going to the movies, and she said he was like a kid on like Christmas, which like begs the question, like how has he not experienced those normal things? Like what was his life really that tied to golf, like within his own
Oh yeah.
household growing up, that he never really got to experience that? And
Yeah,
then
it
like,
doesn't surprise me.
mhm. And then like the way that they made him like break up with her, like I feel like that kind of just set his tone for how he valued those types of relationships moving forward too. Like nothing is above golf. Not
Yeah.
my feelings are
No,
not above golf.
that definitely set the stage for relationships after that. Obviously, I find it interesting just from a filmmaking perspective, like what they choose to put in. They probably have hours and hours of interviews or, yeah, interviews, basically
Hmm.
what people have told them about Tiger Woods. But I find that this is not in the outline. I just thought of this right now, sorry. But the talent or the subjects that they chose were so poetic in the way they talked about Tiger that it created like an amazing just like voiceover for the narrative. It surprised me. It was like a lot of his family friends who were older um, were just they knew him so well, and
Hmm.
like they were able to articulate just so beautifully like who he was and what he was going through. And I think that they just like chose the right people as far as
Yeah.
subjects go. If that, I mean, that was a great decision on their part. But
Hmm.
anyway, random note. But yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Close family friends, a lot of like writers too, to like sports magazines and things like that. So yeah, they're very articulate with their words. You're right. I didn't even notice that until you said it, but it's true.
Yeah, like a lot of the times they would use the interviews and then they would take take what they said and overlay that with all the stock footage. And I just thought
Hmm.
that was so interesting because um, it's basically like they were telling the story of what was happening. Like they were. I mean, but they decided to do it that way because what they said was so beautifully said.
Yes.
Um, but anyway, this is probably just a really open ended. This is probably just a really open ended question, but if this is like the story of Tiger Woods, like I'm not saying there's not going to be another documentary or there's not going to be another sort of biopic narrative feature film about him, but if at this moment there is not another story of Tiger Woods besides all of the tabloids, do you feel that this was the right story to have been told?
Yeah, I think it's pretty fair, honestly, even though it kind of might feel like it's skewed to like, shove all the bad things in your face. You got to think like those are very like magnified like in a short period of time. Tiger was great over a period of like 15 years before like most of this like got out in the open. So I think like you have to look at the bad, but like nobody's really perfect. Like to
Yeah.
draw the comparison to Michael Jordan. I'm not sure if you watched like his documentary that came out over the summer, The Last Dance.
Oh no, I haven't.
No, it's great. You should watch it. I've watched it 3 times. Um,
Okay.
there's a lot of controversy involved with him too, but still, he is widely considered to be the greatest of all time. And it was a lot of dark things in that one as well. But I think like you know what they say, like you can't win without knowing how to lose, and the way that he went through those like public failures is like about as big of a loss as you possibly can. And to see
Yeah.
him come back in spite of all that, in spite of the injuries, like all the mental things he was going through, the trauma, losing, like his wife and not being able to be with his kids as much as, he would have otherwise. And to come back at the end and, winning the Masters last year, I think that's a hell of a story in and of itself. Like, even if you take away the first, 10 years of his career, just knowing, he had such a fall from grace to such a low point with, the opiate use as well, getting that DUI, which was a tough thing to watch, too. And then,
Oh, totally.
coming back from that within a 2-year span, to be the best in golf, that's crazy. That's insane. You couldn't write that if you tried.
What I found really interesting was that when they began filming the documentary, he hadn't won in 2019 yet. And
Oh,
so they didn't know where their story was going. And I think that it was really nice that he won because it ended on a high note. It was a rise and fall story, and now it was a rise, fall, rise story. It was that made it better.
it did.
And so I find that really interesting. It's not like it was planned necessarily until it happened, and they were like, this is great. But yeah, I think that there are many ways to tell this story. And I am happy they did it, I think, in a very subjective manner. But a documentary is still a story. It's
Mm-hmm.
still a perspective. There are facts, but it's put in an order that tells, well, a story. It is what happened, but it's what happened in a certain way, with certain opinions, in a certain order. And that's just a documentary. And so I think that it was, I don't know Tiger Woods. It's not like I'm not any of these people. But if there's anyone to trust who Tiger Woods was and to talk about what happened, it's all of these people who they chose for their subjects. And so I think that in and of itself was, like I said before, a great decision. And they focused a lot on the media, which was part of his, downfall, was that he was creating this image for himself that he could not uphold. And the media was sort of lingering and waiting for him to fall, basically,
Yes.
or do something wrong. And it's something that that I think the filmmakers wanted to point out that happens to other people too, or other people in the limelight. Like Tiger Woods is just one of many other people or celebrities or athletes that deal with this kind of pressure from the media and fans. And so I think that what they were trying to get at was that this pressure from the media mixed with who he had become because of his dad, because of these other experiences from his past, and not being able to be a kid. And this is ultimately what led to his downfall. And so I think that was a great decision, but because I don't know, I wasn't really sort of aware of the story as it was told from the media directly, because I wasn't paying attention to the news when I was in middle school about Tiger Woods. I don't necessarily have a story already in my mind of what they were saying about him. I don't have any preconceived notions of, why Tiger Woods is a good or bad person. And so I think that this story did a really good job of kind of maybe painting over that picture that a lot of people might have had about him, and peeling away who he was and maybe why he came to do what he did. And I think that was a very honest approach.
Mm-hmm.
Last question. Do you think this makes a lasting impression? Like, are you going to remember this years down the line? Are you going to show your kids? I'm just kidding.
What
That was
kids?
a really bad question. Don't show. I don't know.
No, I'm just kidding.
Like, do you think there's going to be another Tiger Woods story, or do you think this is going to be good enough?
I think there will be more. I don't think Tiger is
Yeah.
going away for the foreseeable future, especially
Right.
riding high off that win. I do think that this will be a lasting impression because there isn't an end to it yet. And this is a great place that it stopped, at least the documentary itself, where it kind of summarizes everything and shows this guy's been through it and he's not done. He's not letting up anytime soon. He still has it, in spite of all the injuries, all the trauma, all the family issues, all the marriage issues. He's still a great athlete and still has all the great intentions. And he's shown the ability to change. And so I think that that'll be something that people will like look at Tiger and be like, Tiger's all right. He's a good guy. And
Oh,
give
yeah.
him give him a reason to root for him.
I'll never forget there was this scene, and I don't know, it was like a really quick, like half a second. He was running back. I think it was, maybe it was from the 2008 Masters, but it was him high fiving like a toddler, because the toddler was just had his little arm out,
Hmm.
and he like just like patted his hand, and he just like looked up at him, and I don't know where this came from, but I just started bawling. I was like,
Uh,
oh my god. I was like, that's so cute. It's the cutest thing ever. Because he took the time to be like, oh, hello, little kid. Like, you could be me one day. And that was just
hmm.
such a great moment to capture and to show. Got through all the questions that I had for you.
Hell yeah.
Do you have
Any
any last, like, huzzah, hurrah, I liked this, I didn't? Any other last comments?
Was there any like random like kind of funny like or weird things that jumped out at you during like watching any of this?
Oh my god, just like early 2000s sunglasses. For some reason, his
They were terrible.
wife had the funniest sunglasses all the time. It was like the ones that they like fade. They like go really really light to the point where like why are you wearing sunglasses? Or she looked
Hmm.
like a space cadet. I don't know. It's fucking amazing. I miss the
Oh,
early
like
2000s.
Cyclops and X-Men, like the whole like big thing up
Yes.
front. Yeah.
Yes, like laser eyes, like pew pew.
Those were
Oh my
hilarious.
god.
Yo, the
That was
one thing that I thought was fucking wild was the like National Enquirer reporter that like followed Tiger around in his Escalade when he like first had that affair with the hostess
Oh,
at the
that's
restaurant.
stupid. That was so annoying.
And he
And
caught them. He was like taking pictures of them hooking up in his car. And he went to like their spot, and she had like thrown out her tampon, and he picked it up and like put it in a bag as evidence. Like, what the fuck?
I don't know.
Like,
I'm so
what?
happy they put
What?
that in though, because you're right. Like I'll never forget that stupid quote. Like they had evidence, they had a tampon, and I was like, well, fuck. If they have a tampon, then like they have it all. It's
Can't
just
talk your way
so
out of
weird.
that one.
We're gonna DNA test this tampon ASAP. Get it? Go.
I also really, really liked how Michael Jordan made an appearance in the documentary, just randomly. He was in it.
From his like L or from his Las Vegas trips.
Yeah, they were talking about how he would go out with like Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley, who I love both of them. So
Aw.
it was a nice little crossover. I didn't expect it. It was a very pleasant surprise, a nice Easter egg.
I did like that too because obviously in part one they emphasized, he's the Michael Jordan of golf, and I didn't even know the whole like GOAT thing, like the acronym, like
Greatest of
greatest
all
of all
time.
time. I had no idea what that meant. Like there were
Ooh,
they were holding up signs, and I was like, GOAT, like what the heck was
the
that?
goat. That's a hot term in the sports debate world.
Really?
Yeah, it's always a debate on who's the goat in basketball,
Who's the
Whether it's
GOAT?
Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Even though it's obviously
Wow.
Michael Jordan, but you know, just throwing my
You
two
never
cents
know.
out there.
Okay, well, we are just about out of time. Thank you so much, Bill, for coming on the podcast. Now we have a name. Watch out for this. So watch out for this when it gets posted. You'll know because we'll tell you when it's posted.
Hmm.
Um, and it'll probably be on SoundCloud, but if it's not, just check our social media. And we will see you next time. So, bye, guys.
Hell yeah.